Hey y'all, it's Nancy the Handy Scandy. Welcome back for another crafty venture. And today I'm going to be wrapping up my hashtag series for hashtag Snowman in Summer. Now I have this new to me stamp. It is absolutely adorable. Look at that. It's from Stampendous. It's one of Fran's Cling rubber stamps, and the name is Cling Magical Snowman. Now, I've been eyeing this guy for some time, and I decided to go ahead and pick him up, and then I almost forgot that I had him. So for my last card for hashtag Snowman in Summer, I decided I would use him. I still have other snowman items. Some are dies, some are stamps, different things that I've picked up this summer that I've not yet to use, but do not worry. Of course, we have all of fall and all of winter ahead of us, and we all know that I don't necessarily craft in season. So plenty of time to use the other products that I have. So they will not be neglected. They are just on hold. So as I continue to work on this guy, I decided not only that I was going to use him, but that he was a perfect candidate for the vintage watercolor technique. Now, I will try to remember to link you to some other videos where I've done this, but I would also encourage you to head over to Anna White's channel, WIGHT, and I will try to remember to link to her as well. I need to start taking notes on what I need to link to so that I don't forget. But Anna is where I learned this technique. Now, I don't believe Anna is the one that developed it. I believe it was... I don't even remember the person, and my mind is drawing a blank on the website. It is an art forum, and I will link to it downstairs. So make sure that if you're interested in learning more about this technique, you check my description box, because that is where I'm going to make sure that everything is linked, okay? So, link to Anna, link to my playlist, and the forum. Okay, so now that I've got myself in check, thank you for being patient with me, but I stamped this guy, excuse me, in vintage photo ink. Now, you don't have to stamp in vintage photo, but I would encourage you to stamp in something that is water reactive, because as you can see, I'm not painting with any kind of pigment. I'm simply using water, and I'm pulling the pigment from the actual stamped image. So I'm pulling the pigment from the vintage photo ink, and you may have saw that I took my my elegant writer pen from Speedball, and I went around the edges, and in selective places I just put tiny little lines, tiny little dashes of the elegant writer pen. Now, these are calligraphy pens, but it's the ink formula that we're looking for, because it is also water reactive. Now, on this particular image, I have some big spots, but they weren't quite, or big areas, I guess. Like his belly is a big area. And the idea is that when the water hits the vintage photo, it pulls out those reddy brown colors, right? And the pigment will only go where there is water. So here I'm doing a good job by kind of activating the ink, and then going in with just clean water, and then allowing the ink to kind of bleed out from the edges. Because as it does that, especially the elegant writer, it bleeds out in shades of blue and green and pink and even purple. And it is so, so pretty. And it really does work on images that have larger spaces, where you can just put the little dash of the ink, and then just more of just the wet water, the clean water, so that the ink has a place to bloom into. So his belly really was the best place on this particular image, but I will encourage you, trust the process, because you can see where these baubles and the what is that, the greenery, where that is, it really gets taken away. And as does this star, because, and when I say gets taken away, I mean the details. They just get covered up because there's so much. Now, here it's all just turning black because there's so much pigment. So I actually dry off my paintbrush and I use it as a sponge, and that's what I'm showing here. I'm just tapping my dry brush into all of the wet pigment, and I'm lifting it, and then I'm drying it off on my towel again and coming back in and lifting some more, and then moving it, of course, to where I want it to be. So don't be afraid to remove some of the pigment that you have down. Use your paper towel. Use your blot off towel. People call it an inky binky. Use it. Dab up those pools of water that you don't want. Use your paintbrush in the same way. Use it as a sponge to lift the paint. You don't only have to lay down paint or pigment with your watercolor brushes. With any kind of brush, you can use it as a lifter, as a remover. So I have him all painted up, and yes, he's very dark, but again, trust the process. Trust the process. So now I'm going to bring in some of the grungy bits that I like. This is a stamp from Impression Obsession. It is called Vintage Tree, and I inked it up with Vintage Photo, and then I put water on it because I want a loosey-goosey watercolory look. And so I'm just stamping the card down in random places, and I think that looks so cute. It's not quite loosey-goosey enough for me, so I go back to that. And then this background stamp is called Cowboy Christmas. Now, I've not read the card, but I love the font. And I also love the fact that there are snowflakes embedded into the letter itself. And I love that. So again, inked it up with the Vintage Photo. Sprayed it on the stamp with my water, and then I'm taking the card panel to the stamp itself. See the snowflake? See how loosey-goosey that is? That's what I wanted the rest of it to look like as well. So now I'm taking my spray bottle directly to the card and spraying down some of those trees. Just not all of them, but just a few of them to help them kind of loosen up, to reactivate some of that ink so that I can either move it around or blot it up, just depending on how it works. And in this case, I move it around just a little, but it's creating puddles, so I just go ahead and use that towel and blot it up. And now I want to add some paste, so I need to make sure that everything is dry. So I hit it with my heat tool just a little bit, but before I add the paste, I'm going to put it back in my stamp platform. Now keep in mind that I left my stamp in place. I've not moved it. So as long as I have my paper lined up correctly down in that bottom right corner, squished all the way down there, everything should line up perfectly. So when I restamp it with some fresh black ink, look at that detail that I just brought back. All of those lines that may have kind of disappeared because of the water now are brought back, and so you can see all that beautiful detail, especially in areas like the star, like his hair, like the greenery, the foliage around his base. So now this stencil is brand new to me. It is by the artist Dina Cowell, again from Impression Obsession. The stencil is called Linked Squares, and I don't know why I didn't get this a long time ago, but I know it's not new, but it's definitely new to me, and I love it, and I think Dina did such a good job creating this. Same with the other products that I've used. Jeannie Stariff is the artist for the Vintage Cowboy, and Alessa Baker is the artist for the Vintage Tree, and I just love them. I just love them, and I'm sad to say that Impression Obsession is going out of business soon. It's by choice, but still, it's sad for the crafty community. They've been such a mainstay for so many years, but it's definitely time for the owner to do something new. So I get that. I just hope the best for all the artists that are impacted. But that is part of what we do when we're in this community, in this business especially, and we're freelancers or whatever, or we contract with a company. We just have to figure it out because we are all kind of interconnected in a way. So now I wanted to add all of this beautiful grungy color to my background. So I did my stenciling with the crackle paste. I let it dry, and now you can see I'm using my spray stains. One of them was Vintage Photo Oxide. The others are stains, and I just love it. I know that it's grungy. I know that it's dark, probably too dark for a lot of people. But like I always say, you follow your own creative sensibilities. If you don't like it this dark, don't make it this dark. If you don't like this technique, use another technique. There's lots of different ways. There are no art police. There aren't any. There just aren't. So you'll notice that when I brought in my Olo markers to color the little ruffle or festooning around his neck, I didn't necessarily wait for it to dry. So I did not feel like that part of my paper was incredibly wet, so that's why I went ahead and did it. But I needed to start adding some of that detail back in again. And when you add those, even when they're subtle colors, when you add them back in, that allows your image on this type of a technique, that allows your image to stand back out. Now, what I noticed was that all of that fun stamping in the background was really kind of eaten up between the spray stains and the stenciling. So I wanted some of that back in there, but I wanted it on the top, on the surface, because with each layer that you add on top, you're pushing the layers before it, you're pushing them back. So I wanted to bring that stamping back to the front, so that's exactly what I did. I stamped it over the spray. I stamped it over the stenciling. I even stamped it over the stamping and some of the coloring. So now I'm focusing on bringing him out a little bit from all of that dark background around him. Now you'll see that I left the area around him highlighted. That's because I want him to stand out. I want it to look like he's kind of glowing, like it draws your eye right into that center. And then all these details that I'm adding in there will continue to do the same. So I use my white gel pen. I'm no expert at any of this, right? This is just my process. I'm not formally trained or anything like that. It's just my process and what I've learned along the way from amazing crafters like you, as well as professional teachers on here. I've not taken any professional art classes, like I said. And I also learn a lot by trial and error. If I wonder what if, I do it. I give it a try, and then I add that to my memory bank. So if I did this, this happened, let's not do that again, or let's try it with this technique as well. You know what I mean? And then I build on that knowledge. So here I have a variety of different pens. I have some fine liners. You see I still have my paintbrush there. I have 2 different sizes of the gel pen. I bring in a couple of black pens as well with different points. And I'm just adding in detail. I'm outlining, I'm adding color, and the color is fine. Like it is fine point pens that I'm using. Now, just like I did the green on the ruff, or the festooning around his neck, and it added that subtle color, I'm doing the same with some orange and with some yellow. Now with the orange, I did a little bit on the wand and definitely on his nose, and I even did a little bit of the orange and the green in the greenery around his base. But adding the orange and the yellow to the hat and to the stars, both on the hat and on the wand, just helps them to stand out a little bit better. See how they kind of coordinate a little bit more with the inks that I use to spray, and they stand out like they have their own identity now. They're detailed. So here I'm going around some more finer details with the smaller point of my gel pen and just trying to add more attention to them. And then I'm coming in with this green and just adding some more details again. And then I'll go around the ruff and I'll add those details there. And on the wand, of course, you can see on the little fingers. And then I add some extra detail. And I thicken some of those lines as well, with the green, with the orange, with the black, and it just makes them stand out a little bit more. Each little detail adds to your process, adds to your overall product. I think he's absolutely adorable. Now by coming in with black and by kind of reinforcing those lines that the artist drew, it helps it to stand out from that background as well. See how it's still that vintagey, grungy look, but every time I add something, it stands out just a little bit more. Extending those lines on the stars, making the fingers a little bit wider, adding some depth or some thickness to some of the lines on him, and he's just stinking adorable. And I just kind of doodle and fuss and fidget until I'm good with it. Now, I don't want to cut this background down at all because I love the whole thing. but it's just a little bit too big. Now I end up making this into a 5x7 card, and that postage die that I have there on the right, that is really the only die that I have that fits that size card. So I need to invest in some of those. But with that being said, I didn't know if I wanted to use an oval die or the rectangle die that came with the postage stamp die. And I chose the rectangle, not so much because it goes with the postage stamp, but because it kept as much of the background as I was able to keep. Now, trust and believe, I kept the excess because I can use those scraps for other things when I'm ready. So I have them put away now, so they're not just sitting here tempting me, saying, use me, because that's what they do. But anyway, I have it cut down. I am really struggling at this point in my process with a wonky eye. Like, I'm cutting things crooked, I'm laying things down crookedly, everything's just a little bit wonky. It just is. I tried. And I'm going to move on because I'm at a point of acceptance now. It is what it is. No one, well, I don't want to say no one would notice, because I'm sure someone would notice. Most people will not. And what I know is that no one is going to say, oh my gosh, your card's wonky, don't give that to me. No one's going to say that. So acceptance in this type of process is pretty easy. So I lay everything down. I have a variety of different shades of creams and browns and greens going on. And I trim down all the excess, again, because it was wonky and I'm trying to even it up. But also, I just want that to be a finer line around my frame. I don't want it to be a big, bulky line there. So you can see that I am just laying it down, and here is where my eye is super crooked, and I lay the whole thing almost at an angle. What I don't show is that I lift it up and put it back down a couple times before I'm satisfied with it, and it's still a little wonky. So you see that I tied on this little piece of rope, and it is a rope. It's not a twine. It's not, I don't know what else it might be, but it is actually a rope. It was in my scraps, but then I also added down that little wooden rust. It looks rusty, but it's not rusty because it's wood. But a little snowflake. Picked that up on Amazon. The little rope was just a scrap in my stash. It came on something else. But I used my hot glue gun to adhere those. And then these snowflakes were die cut from the small snowflake die from, again, Impression Obsession. I believe Anna White was the artist on these. And it cuts out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little flakes, but inside one of them has a little star. So I use the star as well. And then I add them down. And like I was saying before, every layer pushes the previous layers back. So you can see how those bright white snowflakes brighten the whole thing up, because they are bright white and they're on the very surface, and everything else in the background just gets pushed back to the background. Now they're still there, they're still visible, they're still important, and they still add to the overall look of the whole card, but they are pushed back. And so once I get those on, then I bring out my bling. I've got to add some bling. I need something on this card that's going to pick up the light, right? So I pull out my sparkle gems. These are the ice sparkle gems from This Calls for Confetti. They are some of my favorite in my whole stash. They really don't have any kind of iridescence to them themselves. They just reflect white light, and they're so, so pretty. And I just add them in abundance all over the card. I started out by adding them to the center of each of the snowflakes, and then I just lay them down wherever it feels right, wherever I want light to be reflected. That's kind of what my guiding decision maker was. Where do I want the light? Where do I need some brightness? And it's not brightness in the way that you would like add white or dry brush with white or something like that. It's just where the light gets picked up. And so I added just a few more spots because I felt like the light wasn't reflecting in those spots. So this gives your eye a place to look. This gives your eye a place to move to, and it keeps your eye moving all over the card. Now, some of you may notice that I did not add anything below him to ground him or to make sure that he's standing or propped up on something. For me, on this card, that doesn't matter. However, there are several different elements that give him a sense of grounding. One is that plume, that foliage that's at his base with the little ornaments. You can't really tell they're ornaments, but they are. Also, the coloring of the background is darker down there at the bottom, so that also gives him a sense of grounding. And finally, that's where I tied the rope, so that is below his body, so again gives him a sense of being grounded. And also, I'm seeing just the way that the stenciling goes around him, same thing, gives him a sense of being grounded. So guys, this is my last card for hashtag Snowman in Summer. Jill Norwood, thank you for suggesting this. You are a genius. Guys, I'd love to see a roundup of everything that you have done. I will be coming back with one myself, and I encourage you guys to like, subscribe, drop me a comment downstairs, and I look forward to seeing you for the rest of the season, and I'll be back again with Snowman in January. Thanks, guys. Mwah.